All right, hello once again, everyone. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been doing a series of video presentations based on the PowerPoint slides for Muroc C# 8th edition. And these are going to be used for the online AWD Application and Web Development 1100 C# programming class for the spring 2024 semester. So far, I've done chapters 1 and 2. And so you'd guess I'm on chapter 3 now. Now, in the previous chapter, what I did was I wrote code for the inventory app, whatever the heck it was called. All right, so I think what I'm going to do in this one is I'm probably going to comment all that code out and put in the code they show here. So if we look in here, and let's take a quick look. Here's our applied objectives. Given the code for a simple app, use the skills presented to add the code and test the app. Okay. Use indentation and blank lines to make code easier to read. Maybe we'll even get into comments here. It looks like we will. So use comments to document code. Use any of the help features to get information needed. And our knowledge objectives in the context of OOP, or object-oriented programming. Describe what a class is, what an object is, what instantiation is, what instance is, what property is, what method is, what event is, and finally what member is. Describe how an application responds to events. Describe the use of code snippets and code refactoring. Distinguish between a syntax or build error and a runtime error. Distinguish between testing and debugging. And finally, explain how a data tip can help debug a runtime error. So this is what we worked on last time. All right, and I just hard-coded in a discount percent of 10%. Now, I do want to mention something. You've probably heard me even say this before, and that is we have not yet reached the point where we're doing a lot of work where we're putting in code to make sure our program doesn't break. So in other words, for the subtotal there, that's our only or our sole input. If for the subtotal we leave it blank or we put in something that is non-numeric, the program will break. If I put in more than one decimal point, the program will break. We'll get into that and how to fix that in later lectures, later chapters in the book. So, why, I'm not really sure, but the author has decided here to start going into some object-oriented programming, also known as OOP terminology. All right? So an object, you can kind of look at an object. This is the way I usually explain it to people. Imagine that you live in an area, and across the street from where you live, there is a very, very, very large vacant lot. All right, it is several hundred acres in size. Now, some developer goes in and buys that lot and decides that what they're going to do is they have enough room on that lot to put in, let's say, 100 houses. All right, then they'll put in streets and whatever, but let's just concentrate on the houses for now. And what the developer says is that he, she, they basically have 5 different house plans for these 100 houses. And they're going to kind of line them up. So you'll have house plan 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Then behind that, you'll have 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, etc. All right? So each one of those houses that get created is an object. It is a house object, a home object, whatever you want to call it. All right? Each house plan, so if we had 5 house plans, 5 blueprints that we were going to use from which we were going to build the houses, each one of those house plans would be a class. So a class is kind of a blueprint that describes what an object will look like. The object is the thing itself, and it combines code, also known as methods, and data, also known as properties. So, as the author mentions here, an object is an instance of a class. The process of creating an object from a class is known as instantiation, or instancing an object. More than one object can be created from a single class, just like more than one house can be created from the same house plan. So properties are the characteristics of an object and the data associated with an object. So think about it. Let's suppose we made a person object. Their properties would be things like their height, their weight, their eye color, their hair color, etc. Methods are the operations, sometimes known as the behaviors, that an object can perform. So they'd be things like eat, sleep, drink, etc. for a person. Events are signals sent by an object to the app telling that something has happened that can be responded to. So, object-oriented programming basically boils down to different objects that communicate with one another. All right. The properties, methods, and events are referred to as the object members. And if you instantiate two or more instances of the same class, each one of them has the same properties, methods, and events. Now, they're not going to be identical, but just like if you had two instances of the same house built from the same house plan, they could have different colors for the houses. The doors could maybe be a little different. The windows might be a little different. One might have grids, one might not, etc. All right. So they come in here and they're showing this member list in the code editor window. I don't want to get too off on this right now. Let me just say, chapter 12 in this book, there are going to be times when we're going through this class and you may very well feel like we're going through the class much, much, much too quickly. But I will tell you that once we reach chapter 12 and we get into talking about object-oriented programming, in many ways it'll seem like we're slamming on the brakes because we're going to slow it way down. All right. So the event, well, in this case, yeah, C# is event-driven programming. Typically, the event involves you clicking a button, but it can be other things as well. All right. Now this you might find confusing, but it says the wiring and the response. All right. You don't have to do this right here. This is letting the system know that the click event for your button is going to be wired up to the click event, so that when you do this, for the exit button, for example, you're telling it to close the form. All right. So there's different types of events. Some of them are shown here. Almost or virtually all controls have click events, double click events, etc. Forms have a load event, a closing event, and a closed event. And when you look at those two, they look similar to one another. But closing means the form has not yet been closed. Closed means, of course, the form has been closed. All right. So as it says, to indicate how an app should respond to an event, you code what's called an event handler. And Visual Studio wires the event to the event handler in a process known as event wiring. So we've actually looked at this a little bit already. Let's go back. Do I still have this open? I do not. This is something else I'm working on here. I don't know if this test is the one we've been using. I think it is. Yep. So right now, what we've had in here And I don't know if what I'm about to do right now is going to work or not. I want to try something. All right. There are ways, better ways of probably what I'm about to show you, but I wanted to see something. That is, if I right mouse click here and I choose add, good. All right. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this program that we've been working on, Windows Forms app Chapter 2. I'm going to right mouse click on it and copy it. And I'm going to paste it in right on the desktop. Now, what I'm about to do may not make a boatload of sense right now. Hopefully it will in the future. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and where it says Windows Forms app Chapter 2, I'm going to change that to a 3. That's the first thing. Next, I'm going to double click on this. I'm not going to open it, but there's a file here that is called Windows Forms app Chapter 2.cs proj. I'm going to change that one from a 2 to a 3 as well. So I changed the name of the folder itself, all right, from Windows Forms app 1 Chapter 2 to Windows Forms app 1 Chapter 3. And then I went in and changed the name of my C# project file from a 2 to a 3. Why did I do that? I want to show you right now. Okay? And that is, I'm going to go back, and in here, I don't care right now about this one. I don't care about this one. I'm going to close this. If it says, do you want to save? Sure, I'll save, but it didn't ask. All right. So I've got Windows Forms app Chapter 1 and Windows Forms app Chapter 2. Now I'm going to right mouse click on my solution, and I'm going to choose Add Existing Project, and I'm going to go back on my desktop and find Windows Forms app Chapter 3. I'm going to click on that and choose Open. And I'm going to try to add this one right here and see if it works. Windows Forms app Chapter 3.cs proj. All right, and it looks like it came in here and it added everything in. It looks like it did. All right, I'm hoping it did. I guess we'll see as we go on. All right, so right now, if I open this one up, it should look just like the one we just were working on, right there. Let's change the background color so we can differentiate between the one in the last chapter and the one in this chapter. So I'm going to click on there. I'm going to go over to back color, and instead of yellow, well, let's make it green, which is right next to it. There we go. And we'll make these green as well. Right now, it has the exact same code in as what I had previously. So if I go to the calculate button, that's the same code we had before. If I go to the clear button, that's the same code that we had before. And if I go to the exit button, that's the same code we had before. So what I'm going to do is for this calculate button, I'm going to remove every bit of code we have in here. So right now it's empty. So if I click on the calculate button, nothing will happen. All right. For the clear button, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to get rid of this message box. This is just a comment that we put in here anyway, or it was a line of code that we put in and commented out. All right. Now, this may look strange, but what I want to do is rather than put the code right in this click event, I'm going to put it underneath. I'm going to type in private void clear form. All right. And then I'm going to take everything that I have in here and I'm going to cut it and I'm going to paste it in here. And now in here, I'm going to call clear form. Now, why did I do that? What I'm starting to do here is I'm starting to show you, all right, how you can take a program and break it down. We're modularizing the program. So rather than doing all my code in here, we're calling a module that's going to do it in another place. Why am I doing that? It may not make a lot of sense now, but it will later. In fact, I'll show you why later on in this chapter. I'm going to do the same thing for my exit. I'm going to grab these two lines that we originally put in and comment it out. I'm going to grab those. Now I'm going to grab all the code we put in here, and I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to type in exit program or not. And you'll notice right now it's giving me an error because I don't have a routine called exit program or not. If I put my mouse here, it says the name exit program or not does not exist. Show potential fixes. We can have it generate one for us if we want. So I can click there and it'll make one. There it is. And I can remove that code that's in there and put in my own. Now, I'm going to run the program just to show you that even though we don't yet have a functioning calculate button, the rest of the program should still work and run just like it did before. I did a save all. Let's run it. Oh, it's still running the old one because, again, I have to right mouse click on the new one we put in and set our startup project, set as startup project. Now it'll run. So here'll be our green form. There it is. So if I put something in here, remember these are read-only fields. I can't put anything in there. But I'm down here under total. If I click clear, that should clear it. My cursor should go right there. And it does. If I click exit, it says, do you want to exit the program? If I say no, I stay there. If I say yes, boom. Okay, well, that's good. But, you know, before we go on, and I'm going to write right now what they put in the book for the calculate, you might still be saying, Jeff, that's fine. Why did you do that, though? I don't get it. You know, I don't get why you put those in their own routines. Let me show you a reason for doing that. I'm going to come in here. This is something much later in the book. You don't have to worry about it now. You won't be asked this on a test for a long, long time. But I'm going to go down to where it says menu strip. And I'm going to put a menu strip right there. Now in here, I'm going to type in ampersand calculate. Right next to it, I'm going to type in C ampersand LEAR. And right next to that, I'm going to type in E ampersand XIT. Now, why did I do that? Because in about 2 minutes, I'm going to be able to either click the button or choose the menu option to call the same routine. But I only want to write the routine once. So I want to call this routine not only from here, but I'm going to want to call it from my menu when I click clear. And for this one, I'm going to want to call it both when I click the button for exit or the menu option for exit. All right? And I'm adhering to a principle called dry, which means do not repeat yourself. So, first of all, this name is pretty ugly. It gives you a name that's called Calculate Tool Strip Menu Item. I'm going to change the name on that to Calculate Menu Item. I'm going to go to the clear one, and I'm going to change the name of that one to Clear Menu Item. You don't have to do this, of course. It's just a personal thing on my part. Finally, I'm going to go to Exit, and I'm going to change that one to Exit Menu Item. All right? Now, just like buttons, these are going to respond to 2 clicks. So I'm going to put this one in first. It doesn't matter which one you put in first. There's my exit, and there it is. And it's actually pretty much right below the other exit. I'm going to move it. So it's literally right below. It's literally right below the other exit. So there's my button exit, and there's my menu item exit. And I'm going to call the same routine. All right. Now let me save this and run the program again. And you'll notice now not only can I exit from here, but I can also exit from here. It's calling the same routine. That's why you start to modularize. So you can call your routine from multiple places. I'm going to find the clear one here. Just like before, I'm going to grab that. And then right below our clear form here, all right, I'm going to again, whoops, I'm sorry, I wanted to put it up there. That was my error. So right there, whoops, come on, try it again, Jeff. All right, so right there, I want to call clear form. All right, so now when I run this and I put something in here, I can click clear and boom, it works. Or I can click clear and it works. All right, that was a little aside. Sorry about that. All right, but let's go back and now let's worry about our calculate. All right, and we want to be able to call calculate both from the button and we want to be able to call calculate, like I said, from both the button and from our menu option. All right, so let's take a look. Let's jump back into the book here and see what our author says. Completion list. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of stuff we're going to be working with code in here. All right, so here's the event handler. All right, so this is the calculate button. I'm going to go and grab all of that code, and you'll notice it's pretty doggone long. All right here, and it's on the next page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first key it in, but I'm going to put it into its own routine, maybe even more than one routine. We'll see. So decimal subtotal equal convert dot to decimal, and I'm hoping it's the same thing I called mine, txt subtotal dot text, decimal discount PCT for percent equals 0M. Doesn't matter if you use a capital M or lowercase. All right, and I wrote decimal, which would of course not work. And let's see. If subtotal is greater than or equal to $500, all right, so if it's $500 or more, the discount percent is going to be 20%. And that's 0.2M. That is 20%. All right. Otherwise, if it's between $250 and $499.99, the discount percent is going to be 15%. And again, it doesn't matter if I use uppercase for the M, lowercase, I can mix them. That's what I've been doing. Otherwise, if the subtotal is greater than or equal to $100, but it's less than $250, so up to $249.99, then our discount percent is 10%. And that's it for this page. All right. Otherwise, it looks like it's nothing. There is no. So we could put a final else in there that says the percent is 0, but up above, we set it equal to 0 to begin with. So it doesn't really matter. We could do it. It's kind of, it's really unnecessary. All right. Now, decimal discount amount equals our subtotal times our discount percentage. Our invoice total is equal to our subtotal minus our discount amount. And then finally, we have to go and put those things in the particular text boxes. So TXT, and my names are a little different, so we'll fix them. Discount PCT dot text equals dot text equals discount PCT dot toString, and they're doing a percentage like I did, but only with 1 digit, and that's fine. TXT discount amount dot text equals our discount amount dot toString, and that's going to be the currency. And again, that can be a lowercase c or an uppercase c. It really and truly does not matter. TXT total dot text equals invoice total dot toString, and again that'll be again that will be currency. And again, it doesn't matter if we use upper or lowercase. Let's just make them lower because that's what the author did. And then finally, let's set the focus back to our subtotal. Now, I'm going to go and paste this in. Okay, so I'm going to copy it right now and paste it in. It's going to give me a bunch of errors because the names the author used are different than the names I used. It's not a problem. We'll fix it momentarily. All right, but in here, let's just say, let's call this calculate final total. We don't have anything written that's called calculate final total, so we're going to get errors, and we'll write it in just a minute. All right, now you'll notice I'm lining and putting everything together that kind of belongs together. All right, you don't have to do that, but I think it works out a little nicer to do that. Makes it easier when you're going through your code. Now again, I'm going to get errors when I paste this in. All right, not too many though. Don't know why it's doing that, but I don't want that in here. There we go. So this is see what I call this, TXT discount percent, and this is TXT discount, whoops, I want that to be amount. And again, I'm just using my names as opposed to the names the author used. That's all. When you look though, that's the only thing that's different. So let's try this. If we put in $500, we should get a 20% discount. If we put in $499.99, we should get a 15% discount. If we put in $249.99, we should get a 10% discount. And if we put in $99.99, we should get no discount. Let's see if indeed that works. All right, I'm going to move this off. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to move that off to the side so you can see what I'm doing here. So if it's greater than or equal to 500, so let's put in 500. And again, play computer. That should be a 20% discount, which should mean that's $100, which means that's 400. And it's working. All right, my clock is going, so let me pause for just a second here. All right, so that appears to be working. Let's try it again with $1,000. All right, and I should still get my 20%. That should be 200, and that should be 800. I'm grabbing values that are easy to work with and easy to test with. All right, now let's change, and we're gonna check this. So I'm gonna put in here $499.99, so almost $500. So this should be 15%. This should be just about $75, maybe $74.99. I don't know. And then this should be about, what, with $75, like $424.99 or something like that. So notice it is 15%, $75, $424.99. So that's working. Let's try it with 250. All right. When we do that, it should again be 15% here. 250 times 15 should be, I think, 3750 here. And 250 minus 3750 should be like 212.50 or something like that. So $250. And there you go. Let's try this one, and we'll try both ends here. So with 100, that should be 10%, 10 and 90. All right. And with 249.99, that should again be 10%, $24.99, or maybe $25 probably, and like $224.99 or something like that. There you go. Finally, let's try it at less than 100, and we should get no discount. So we're going to put $99.99 here. In fact, let's clear it first. You don't have to, but there we go. No discount amount, so it's still $99.99. So it appears everything is working. Let's do one more thing. Let's clear that up here. Let's run it here. And notice it says something was not in the correct format. Okay, input string was not in a correct format. Why did it do that? The reason that it did that is we don't have anything in here. And whether I call it from here or from here, I'm going to get an error message. But if I come in here, run it again, and let's put in $1,000 here. Now I should be able to run it from here. And I can. So what I've shown you here, all right, what I've shown you here is a few things. First of all, we went in and we very quickly did a little bit of modularization in here. That is, we're calling the same routine from both our button click event and our menu option click event. And we're calling that one. We're doing the same thing down here. From our buttons clear event and our menus clear event, we're calling clear form from each of them. Finally, from our button exit and our menu exit, we're calling exit program or not. All right. Plus, we saw some logic in here. Now, the only thing that I would do differently than the author, because this is the way I was taught. All right. I'm going to take these two lines and I'm going to copy them. I'm going to get an error when I do this, but I'll fix it right away. All right. I'm going to set this equal to 0M. And I'm going to set the next one equal to 0M. Now I'm getting errors in here now below because I've declared the variable and I'm trying to redeclare it. So I just have to remove the word decimal here and it'll work fine. So what did I do that's different from what the author did? All right. And to show you, I'm declaring all of my variables, which is what these are. I'm declaring all of them in their own place, together at the top of the routine. That's the way I was taught to program. All right. Do you have to do it that way? No. You already saw that you didn't have to. All right. Again, that's just the way I happen to do it. All right. So let me again do a file, save all. And let's make sure we didn't break anything. Okay, looks good to me. All right. So jumping back then to our slides, let's talk about what we did here. All right. So our subtotal, this is saying right there, that line that you see in dark gray is saying, I want you to grab whatever we put in the text box and convert it to a decimal. A decimal is a number which may or may not contain a decimal point. But here, this is declaring the variable. Everything you see in gray there. This is initializing the variable. Really, the equal sign is part of that. So that's initializing the variable. When you declare a variable, if you know its initial value, you can give it an initial value. If you don't, you can give it something like 0. So that's our percentage. If what we put in for our subtotal is greater than or equal to $500, then our percentage is 20%. You get a 20% discount for anything you buy that's $500 or above. If you buy something that's greater than or equal to $250 and less than $500, in other words, up to $499.99, you get a 15% discount. Otherwise, if you buy something that's greater than or equal to $100, but less than $250, or in other words, between $100 and $249.99, your percentage is 10%. Otherwise, there's no percentage. So if it's less than 100, it's no percentage. So our discount amount is our subtotal times our discount percentage. Our invoice total then is our subtotal minus that discount amount. And then those 3 lines in a row that start with TXT equals something, those are just basically writing everything out. We're writing everything out to our user interface. This will reset the focus. So let's do one more thing in here. And that is, let's come in and let's put some comments in here. All right. So we're going to put a comment here that says called when calculate button is clicked, because that's the routine that's called when that's clicked. All right. I'm going to come down to this one. And it's going to say called when clear button is clicked. Oops, I spelled clear wrong. And finally, let's come down to this one. And we'll say called when exit button is clicked. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to come down to here. And I'm going to say called when exit menu option is clicked. This one is called when the clear menu option is clicked. And this one will be called when the calculate menu option is clicked. So I'm just putting in a little bit, all right, a little bit in here of, we're putting in a little bit of documentation. Now I'm looking here, and I want to change my namespace also to Chapter 3. Now I could just come in here and change it, but I want it to be changed everywhere in the program. So I'm going to double click this. I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose rename. And I'm telling it to rename it everywhere here by having those 2 checked. And I'm going to put in a 3 here and hit enter. And notice it changed to a 3. So everywhere that it refers to it now, it's going to be changed to that. All right, so let's put in a couple more comments here. So I'm going to put in here declare and initialize local variables. What does that mean? Well, we have 4 variables in this routine. One called subtotal, one called discount PCT, one called discount AMT, and one called invoice total. Now, if you're real squirrely about lining things up, you can do that, but you have to basically kind of do it by hand like I just showed you. All right, so these are local variables because they're declared inside of a routine. If they're declared at the top of the program, which we'll get to at a later time, they're called global variables. So let's put a comment here that says purchases $500 and up get a 20% discount, because that's what we just said. The next one, purchases $250 and up to $499.99 get a 15% discount. This says purchases $100 and up to $249.99 get a 10% discount. All right, so here we'll say calculate discount amount. Oops. Let's put another comment here. This will say calculate invoice total. And we'll put one more comment here that says copy variable values to their UI counterparts. That's the user interface. All right, so put it where it belongs. Finally, set the focus, so that means the cursor will be there, to the subtotal text box. All right, that's pretty much what we have to do. And now the program is actually fairly well documented. All right, you can see it's not real small, not real large, but it's over 100 lines, almost 110 lines. Let's make sure we didn't break anything. We'll put in 500 again. Remember, that should be 20%, 100 and 400. Looks good. Let's put in $100. That's a 10%, 10 and 90. That looks good. How about $50? That should be no discount. And that looks good. Looks to me like everything here is working. All right, let's do a file, save all in here. And let's go back into here. All right. Now, these are, when he says coding rules here, what they mean is basically, yeah, they are things that you better follow. In other words, use spaces between different things. This is a case-sensitive language, so make sure you use the same capitalization for keywords, which we'll talk about in a later chapter, class names, Chapter 12, object names, Chapter 12, variable names, which I've already talked about. End each statement with a semicolon, and blocks of code get put between curly braces. All right. Now, they're showing you some errors here. Let's go back to the program and actually put in an error or two so you can see these. So I'm going to come back, and where I've got this calculate final total right here, I'm going to remove that. You'll notice as soon as I do, I get it. It's red there, and it says a semicolon is expected. I'm purposely leaving it off. I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run the program. the program doesn't run cleanly, and it's going to give me a syntax error, and it'll show it down here in a minute. When this happens, literally 99 times out of 100, if not 100 times out of 100, choose no here. And then in here, it's showing us semicolon expected, line 22. It can't do much more to show us. In fact, if I double click on it, it's showing right where it's expecting it. So if I put that semicolon in there, my errors are now all gone. Now I'm going to make another error. I'm going to put a semicolon here where one doesn't belong. All right. And you'll notice it gives me a whole bunch of errors because it doesn't understand what this is doing. But just fixing one will make all of them go away. They will. There. How about if I put in 2 semicolons? Doesn't seem like it really bothers anything. All right. Looks wrong. Okay. How about if I type in decimal incorrectly? Decimal. All right. It says the typer namespace decimal could not be found. So again, it tries to show me where the error is. What I'm showing you right now, I'm introducing errors, but we're debugging the program, trying to get the bugs or the errors out of the program. All right. Let's double check. I think I removed all those errors. Let's make sure it still works. All right, 20%, 400, looks good to me. All right, let's jump back into here. Now they're saying that this is a little bit more readable style, okay, using some white space. They recommend you use indentation and extra spacing when necessary to line things up, to put things together that appear to belong together, etc. We're going to be going through all this stuff as we go on. Now there's more comments. So let's actually use their comment that they have here. So I'm going to grab that comment, copy it, and I'm going to go back up to the top of my program, or near the top. I like to put it right up above the namespace here. All right. So it says this method, I don't even like their verbiage here. I'm going to say this program calculates the total for an invoice amount depending on the discount that's based on the subtotal. That's not too bad. All right. So when you start a comment with // that's called a single line comment. That means everything to the right of what you typed in becomes a comment. If you want a comment to go over multiple lines, you start it with a /*, / and an asterisk, and you end it with an asterisk and a /. Okay. So again, they put their comments in a little differently than I did. There they are. Code editor. Yeah, let's look at that. Let's pretend for just a second that we're having a problem right now with our calculate final total method. It just isn't working. We don't know what the problem is, but there's a problem with it. So what I can do is I can highlight the whole method like this, everything that's between the curly braces. Now I could go back in and just at the top, I could put in a /* and end it down here with a //. And that would work just fine. But I can also come in here, highlight all of it, and go over here, up into here, and notice I've got a thing here when I highlight it. It says comment out the selected lines right there. And that comments the whole thing out. And if I click the one next to it, it uncomments. All right, just showing you a couple things in here so that you're aware of them. That's all. This completion list, we'll go over that as we go on. These snippets, I don't like using snippets. Read that on your own. Okay, we'll talk about that. The rename I already kind of showed you. The form that's displayed we just looked at. All right, we looked at a couple of errors, and we're going to get into, we'll have a whole chapter on how to fix these errors. All right. So we tested, and you may or may not have noticed it, but I also used the enter key and the escape key to make sure they worked. I tested with valid input, and I also showed you that if you tested it with invalid input, the program would break. All right, and that's what it looks like in break mode. So we've now gone through the first 3 chapters in our text. File, save all. All right, so when I come back in just a couple minutes, we'll get into chapter 4. In fact, when you look at this, we've gone through the first section now, an introduction to Visual Studio. When I continue on, we're going to go into section 2, the C# language essentials. And again, I'll go through 4 through 11. My goal is to at least be through chapter 16 by the time the semester starts, ideally between, or have gone over all 22 chapters. All right, we've gone through 3 so far. 3 out of 22 is about 13%. So we got a ways to go. So next I'll go through chapter 4, where we will talk about how to work with numeric and string data. I'll be back with that shortly.